In the wake of the coronavirus outbreak in China, the country's supplies are stretched to the limit. Now, some local authorities are eyeing private property. Questions about the real scale of the coronavirus outbreak in China, as some factories are given new orders to produce body bags in large quantities. Netizens are questioning China's anti-epidemic team, which doesn't include any epidemic prevention experts. The US gets its 13th case of the coronavirus. It comes from someone who was evacuated from China and tested positive for the virus while in quarantine.
What is the true situation on the spread of the coronavirus in China? Nobody seems to know, but common opinion among experts seems to be that it hasn't reached the peak. According to investigations conducted by the Chinese language Epoch Times, several sources in the industry say many textile factories in China have been given special orders by the government. But what are they producing? You might think it's more face masks and protective suits to combat the virus, but it's not. Instead, the factories are now producing body bags. One said they're producing 1 million of them. This raises questions about how serious the situation really is. Due to the sensitivity of the information, we won't reveal our sources' identities. In China, over 80 cities have been put on lockdown. In some cities, the army and police have taken over. But the situation inside the army is getting grim. The Hong Kong-based Information Center for Human Rights and Democracy reported on Tuesday at least 50 confirmed cases and 2,500 people quarantined across the Navy, Air Force, and Army. And a nuclear submarine training program was suspended because even if all submarine members test negative, there might be someone who caught the virus but only becomes sick during the training. In the closed environment of a submarine, the risk of transmission is extremely high. Now to the transmission of the coronavirus. 2 confirmed cases in Hong Kong have raised fears about how the virus spreads. 2 people from the same apartment building became infected, but they live on different floors. The floors share the same drainage system, raising fears the virus could spread through the pipes. A research team from Japan concluded that at least half of the confirmed cases got the virus from silent carriers, or people who showed no symptoms at the moment of transmission, but were already infected with the virus. This research is based on 52 confirmed cases from 6 countries, including China and the US. The fight against the coronavirus in China is becoming harder and harder. So who is leading this fight? At the end of January, Chinese authorities created an anti-epidemic team. But the team does not include a single epidemic prevention expert or officials from the country's National Health Committee. Instead, the 9 include members of the Central Propaganda Department and the Ministry of Public Security. Netizens are already calling the team the Anti-Civil Resistance Team. This Monday, millions of people in China returned to work after the extended Lunar New Year holidays. The Transportation Ministry estimated 160 million Chinese people will go back to work. Before, in order to stop the spread of the coronavirus, many local authorities in China closed roads. But people familiar with the matter say China's leader, Xi Jinping, is worried about the toll the virus is having on the economy and has ordered local officials to lift transportation bans so people can return to work. People are now asking about the risks of gathering so many people in workplaces such as factories. On top of the risk to workers' health and well-being, if one worker is confirmed to be infected with the coronavirus, should all products be recalled? What would the customs in other countries do? In the wake of the coronavirus outbreak in China, the country's supplies are stretched to the limit. Now, some local authorities are laying their eyes on private property.
Some Chinese cities are now allowed to take possession of private property. Local authorities from the 2 southeastern cities of Guangzhou and Shenzhen announced the decision on Tuesday, effective immediately. They say it's to cope with the shortage of disease control supplies. Both cities have now given themselves the right to take equipment, facilities, real estate, vehicles, and other supplies from local businesses and individuals for disease control purposes. Cars and even private buildings may be seized. Local authorities say they will offer compensation and return the assets if possible, but people are not reassured given what happened in Wuhan. There, officials are taking college dorms as quarantine centers. Videos show workers tossing students' objects around as if throwing trash. Guangzhou and Shenzhen are among the richest cities in China, but China's local governments are struggling and sliding further into a debt crisis. The coronavirus outbreak is straining their ability to respond in an emergency. The local government announcements are sparking heated discussion on China's social media platforms. Some question why the local governments don't have enough public assets to deal with the virus that they have to take private property. The shortage of supplies is creating some chaos in China. Last week, several Chinese cities got into a fight over medical supplies. One city was accused of stealing a shipment of surgical masks from another city. Reporting by Penny Zhou, NTD News.
China's new case and research finds coronavirus seeming to have a longer incubation period, but U.S. experts cast doubts. NTD's Juliet Song has the details.
There is now a question of whether coronavirus has a longer incubation period than previously believed. Chinese media now reports that one patient was diagnosed 42 days after she returned home from Wuhan, while a new study led by China's top coronavirus experts found the virus incubation period could be as long as 24 days. But U.S. experts remain skeptical.
We'd like to know how it is they can be so sure that there were not other exposures of those individuals to the coronavirus, because such a long incubation period would undoubtedly present a larger challenge to the whole public health effort.
Dr. Schaffner says the frequency of long incubation periods is also in question.
It may only happen very, very rarely. But regardless, if that is possible, it makes the public health effort more difficult.
Chinese officials have said that coronavirus patients can be infectious before showing symptoms, but Dr. Schaffner says that hasn't been confirmed by the U.S., yet since American scientists haven't seen China's data. Although it's biologically plausible, the question is whether it's common for the virus to spread that way, or if it only happens occasionally. For now, it's still unclear. Reporting from New York, Juliet Song, NTD News.
Hong Kong has evacuated people from a residential building after 2 residents were confirmed to have the coronavirus. Health officials also confirmed 7 more cases in the city.
Hong Kong residents were driven away in buses on Tuesday morning from a housing block in the New Territories district. Health officials said the evacuation was ordered after a second resident in the building became infected. The director of the Center for Health Protection, Dr. Wang Ka-heng, said they're investigating the suspected environmental transmission of the 2 cases. The 62-year-old infected woman visited nearby Macau on January 18th and 19th. Her son and daughter-in-law who live with her also showed symptoms of the virus. The 2 residents who contracted the virus live on separate floors, but their apartments shared the same drainage system. Officials say that's one possible way that the virus was transmitted. Dr. Ha-king says it's unclear how many residents were linked to the drainage system, but people who show symptoms will be placed under medical isolation as a precaution. The newest case involves a man who is a co-worker of another infected person. Hong Kong has confirmed 49 cases of coronavirus, while tens of thousands have been reported in mainland China. Social media users and citizen journalists in China suspect the number of cases and deaths are far higher than officially reported.
1 out of a flight of 167 evacuees from China has tested positive for the coronavirus. This makes the 13th known case in the U.S. Initial tests at the hospital found the patient not positive for the virus, but further tests days later proved the opposite.
After arriving from China last week, 4 people showed possible symptoms of the coronavirus and were hospitalized. Local health officials said the initial tests found them to be not infected. They returned to quarantine. Tuesday morning, officials said further testing showed one of the patients positive for the virus. The patient has now returned to UC San Diego Health for observation and isolation. The medical center says the patient is doing well and has minimal symptoms. The San Diego case is the 13th to be confirmed in the U.S. and the 7th in California. 11 of these cases are people who recently traveled to Wuhan, China. The other 2 are instances of person-to-person transmission. Meanwhile, the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, and the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Alex Azar, said their coronavirus response is to protect Americans. As opinion contributors in the newspaper USA Today, they said the first duty of the federal government is to keep our citizens safe. The articles say America's public health officials have closely monitored the situation, worked to understand the virus, and taken steps to limit Americans' exposure to it. At the same time, the U.S. has offered other countries tremendous help, China in particular, by sending medical experts, talking to relevant officials, and making coronavirus test kits.
A number of companies are pulling out of the largest exhibition for the mobile industry. They say it's because of the coronavirus.
Sony, California-based chip giant Intel, and Japanese wireless carrier NTT Docomo on Monday pulled out of the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona because of the coronavirus outbreak. Event organizers said that no one from China's Hebei province, where the coronavirus outbreak began, would be allowed to attend, and that visitors from China would have to prove they have been outside the country for at least 2 weeks before the event began. Earlier actions aimed at preventing the spread of the virus include changing microphones between speakers and advising all attendees not to shake hands. Amazon, South Korea's LG Electronics, Swedish equipment maker Ericsson, and U.S. chipmaker Nvidia have already withdrawn from this year's event. Last year, it had more than 100,000 visitors and upwards of 2,400 exhibitors. The Mobile World Congress is the telecom industry's biggest annual gathering. Companies spend millions on stands and hospitality to fill their order books. The organizer estimates that the conference boosted the local Barcelona economy by around $515 million last year.
Here at China in Focus, we bring you first-hand information from inside China. Don't forget to subscribe to get the latest updates on the coronavirus.